Okay, Catherine, however you want to take it away. If you want me to just take it
Thank
away,
you,
I
Doc.
could.
Good,
Yeah.
good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are. Welcome to our weekly webinars. This is another exciting installation of what we do with Dr. Dida. So for those of you who do not know, I want to first ask that please type into the chat box where you're coming in, where you're joining us from, your city and country. That would be fantastic. And I am going to take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Dira, our guest speaker tonight. He is a dual board certified physician in internal medicine and pediatrics. And he's also the founder of Reclaim Your Health Solutions. Reclaim Your Health Solutions is a virtual functional medicine and metabolic health practice, which is based in Fort Worth, Texas. He's originally a proud son of Africa. And I just want, for those of you who do not know, I want to acknowledge in a very special way Dr. Dida's mom, who is joining in from Cameroon. So, Mama Wefian, welcome in a very special way. Back to our speaker. So after more than a decade of hospital medicine, Dr. Dida shifted his focus to addressing the root causes of modern chronic diseases, being insulin resistance, gut dysfunction, and metabolic imbalance, helping people reverse diseases rather than just manage symptoms. Dr. Dida is a passionate educator who teaches how lifestyle and nutraceutical strategies can restore metabolic health. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dida Wefen, a physician on a mission to help people reclaim their health. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for that warm introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to start this presentation. Um, And what I'll ask is that you keep your questions till the end. Hopefully, we'll have a session at the end where we can answer some of the questions. So, thank you, Catherine, for that introduction. My name is Dr. Dieter. I'm a board certified internist and pediatrician. And today, what I want to do today is to take you through how our modern day diseases today, the modern day chronic medical conditions we face today, are due to two entities. One entity we call insulin resistance, and the other entity we call microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis. These two entities, what they do is that they result in something called metabolic dysfunction, just simply a fancy medical term to say energy shortage. Okay. And that energy shortage then drives the modern day diseases that we have. So, insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction cause insulin resistance and dysbiosis cause metabolic dysfunction, energy shortage, which then drives a chronic day diseases. So you could have a direct link between insulin resistance and the chronic modern day diseases, and a direct link between microbiome dysfunction and the chronic modern day diseases. So what I want to do today is to take each of them single handedly and give you the direct link to these modern day diseases. And let's start with insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? To be able to understand what insulin resistance is important to understand what insulin does in the first place. And first of all, for the purpose of this talk, when you hear insulin resistance, it just simply means that it's a fancy medical term to say that insulin is not working properly. So, what is the job of insulin to understand when it's not working properly? Insulin has a very important job. In fact, I consider insulin to be the most important hormone in the body. There is no hormone that trumps the importance of insulin, because insulin, when insulin is working properly, it dictates the smooth functioning and smooth structure of the body. So important. I call insulin the CEO of the body, the boss, the chef, the patron, the one that dictates everything. Now, you may now ask, then what is the job of insulin? This is exactly what insulin does. The job of insulin is to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. You see, when we eat, the end product of absorption is the release of glucose into the blood. That glucose has to be mobilized into the cell because glucose is a source of energy. Insulin's job is to get that glucose out of the blood into the cell. When glucose enters the cell, there is a special organelle in the cell called the mitochondria. You may remember from your early biology classes that the mitochondria was called the powerhouse of the cell. In the mitochondria, the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain, with the result of an energy molecule called ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it is just an energy molecule. Now, I want you guys to understand this. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. The smallest entity of the body is a cell. Cell group up to form tissues, tissues group up to form organs, organs system, system forms the whole man. Every single cell in the body requires energy to function. When the cell doesn't have the energy it needs to function, the cell malfunctions. And the simplest definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that has malfunctioned because of the lack of energy. Why then is insulin so important? Why do I call it the CEO, the patron, the boss? Because insulin sits central at securing the body's energy needs. Without insulin, the body cannot make energy. Now, we say you have insulin resistance when there is a breakdown in this process of insulin securing the body's energy needs. That breakdown in this process is called insulin resistance. I'll just denote it here as IR, insulin resistance. Now, it's important to understand how this breakdown occurs, because if you know how something broke down, you can walk backwards to fix it. Because once upon a time ago, when your creator and my creator made us, insulin is working just fine, designed us perfectly, beautifully. So there's something that happened that resulted in insulin resistance, that resulted in stolen energy, and now causes us to have modern day diseases. So let me explain to us how you develop insulin resistance, how there is a breakdown in this process. It occurs in two ways. The very first way is what I call too much fat. Too much fat. Now, when we eat, right, all the calories that we eat, the body takes those calories and converts it into energy that energy that the body needs. If we consume if we consume more calories than the body needs, the body takes those excess calories, converts those excess calories into fat, and stores it into a cell. So normally a cell is supposed to look like this. That's what a normal cell is supposed to look like. And I'm going to draw a replica of this cell now. Now, when we consume more calories than we're supposed to, the excess calories are converted into fat. The body doesn't know what to do with that fat. It now takes that fat and stores it into this cell. And that is not good, because this cell has no business holding fat. So this cell now becomes what I call a fat-laden cell, okay? And remember, the job of insulin is to move glucose out of the blood into the cell. So this cell that is a normal cell, insulin can come and knock at the door of the cell and the cell will happily take up glucose. But when insulin comes to this cell that is filled with fat, and knocks at the door of this cell and says, knock, knock, I got glucose. I need you to take it in so that we can make energy. This fat-laden cell tells insulin, what are you crazy? Don't you see that I am full? I have no room in the inn. If I were to bring glucose into the inn, glucose will have no place to lay its head. All the beds are taken. Why? Because of all of that fat that is now occupying the space. So this fat laden cell cannot take in glucose. And that is crazy because the cell needs glucose to survive. But the cell is now refusing to open its door to the one thing that it needs to survive. Why? Because fat has taken its place. So that is the first way in which you develop a breakdown in insulin securing the body's energy needs. Too much fat. That comes as a consequence of excess calories converted into fat stored in that cell. The second thing that happens is that because this glucose cannot enter this cell, glucose begins to accumulate in the blood. That accumulation of glucose in the blood triggers the pancreas to produce insulin. There's a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose and the amount of insulin produced by the pancreas. So when glucose is now accumulating in the blood because it cannot enter this fat-laden cell, a message is sent to the pancreas to produce too much insulin. And too much insulin is not good. Too much insulin is a very bad thing for the body. Remember, I described insulin like the CEO of the body, dictates the smooth functioning and structures, like the patron, the boss. Imagine having a boss, who was normally running the company smoothly. One day, that boss, that CEO comes to work, he has gone crazy. He's backing out orders at his employees, yelling at them, dragging them from left to right, becoming a bully and a tyrant, coming to your desk saying, "You're going to do this my way or the highway." What happens is that a boss who was initially level headed like that, who dictated the smooth functioning of that company, when that boss loses his calm and becomes tyrannical and a bully, his subordinates, his employees are going to lose respect for him. When they lose their respect for their boss, it makes it harder for them to do what the boss tells them to do. If I lose my respect for somebody who is my superior, I am reluctant, to do anything they ask me to do. You translate that to the cell. When insulin is running too much now, insulin is being a bully and a tyrant to the cell, coming to the cell, yelling at the cell, shoving the cell around, saying, "You're going to do things my way," being tyrannical. And the cell doesn't take kindly, to that bullying mentality of insulin. And so the cell loses its respect for insulin. When the cell loses its respect for insulin, when insulin now commands the cell, "Open your doors this wide so I can let glucose in," the cell, in its reluctance because it has lost its respect, opens its doors instead this wide. So a narrower door means that less glucose enters the cell and more glucose remains back in the blood. So it causes more glucose to accumulate in the blood. Remember the one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin? That causes things to go from fry pan to fire. So the pancreas now has to produce even more insulin. And even more insulin is like a boss, who was a bully, raises his bully level from here to here. The employees are going to lose even more respect for that boss. So it's a vicious process. And so these are the two ways in which insulin is not able to secure the body's energy needs. It starts with too much fat, leading to too much insulin. And when that happens, we say you have insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, remember, a simplest definition for disease is a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that have malfunctioned because they do not have energy. Then you start having all these issues. I want you to think about insulin resistance not just as related to diabetes, but insulin resistance is the root of high blood pressure, the root of heart disease, the root of obesity, the root of migraines. And unfortunately, this slide is not exhaustive as to all the modern day diseases that come as a result of insulin resistance. It's only a depiction. I want to just spend a little bit of time and just give you a direct link to insulin resistance and high blood pressure. You could easily see the link between insulin resistance and diabetes based on what I have shown here. Glucose rising because of this scenario will lead you to diabetes. But let's talk about high blood pressure. So for you to see this concept of deficiency of energy resulting in disease processes. You see, we generate our blood pressure from the artery. In your artery, there is a special cell in the artery called the endothelial cell. Okay. The job of the the job of the endothelial cell is to produce a special signaling molecule called nitric oxide. The, the job of nitric oxide is to come to the wall of the artery and to cause expansion of the wall of the artery. In medicine, we say vasodilation. It takes a like elbow out, it pushes the walls out. And so when you have nitric oxide exerting its effect on the walls of the artery, it pushes the walls out and causes the diameter of the artery to be larger. When the diameter of the artery is larger, the blood pressure in the artery is going to be lower. But check this out. Nitric oxide can only be produced when this endothelial cell has energy. Remember, every cell in the body requires energy to function. So when you have insulin resistance and you have a deficiency of energy, this endothelial cell that needs energy to function does not have the ATP it needs to produce nitric oxide. So there's a deficiency of nitric oxide production because of a deficiency of energy. If there's a deficiency of nitric oxide production, nitric oxide cannot exert its vasodilatory effect or elbow out, opening of the walls of the artery. And instead, in the absence of nitric oxide, the walls of the artery, are constricted. A smaller artery vessel, it cannot move out. And you have a smaller diameter, the pressure in that artery is going to be higher. Okay. Another thing is that this molecule called nitric oxide, it is inactivated by insulin. When insulin is running very high, it causes this molecule not to be able to do its job. So I just want to give you that link for the purpose of this talk. We cannot go through all of these disease entities, but I just want you to understand that when you have a deficiency of energy, it's going to cause malfunctioning in cells, which results in disease processes. The second thing is the microbiome. We said that the microbiome is the second entity that leads to most of our chronic modern day diseases. So, to be able to understand what a microbiome dysfunction is, let's understand what the microbiome is. You see, in our guts, there are about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria in our gut that God created. Those 30 to 100 trillion bacteria are called the microbiome. This is a representation of it right there. Now we live in a symbiotic relationship with these organisms. What it means that we do for them and they do for us. We scratch their back, they scratch ours. Now, our job as humans is we're supposed to provide food and shelter to these organisms, and in turn they are supposed to provide certain important functions for us. Now I want to highlight two important functions for the purpose of time. You can see some of the other functions, but the very first function is that these organisms protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic just simply means disease causing. And how do they do that? They do that by producing a very special short chain fatty acid That short chain fatty acid, it what helps to protect the gut from disease causing bacteria. You see, the cells of the gut are lined together one to another, like my fist comes together. This is one cell, this is another cell. They come and line together like my fist. So imagine the cell and make the wall, cell to cell, cell to cell. At this place where my fists come together is an area of vulnerability called the tight junction. Right there, if there is weakness in that, it can give an opportunity for toxins or bacteria to seep out of the weakness into the blood and cause infection or chronic inflammation. So, what these short chain fatty acids do is that they act as a sealant, they act as concrete, they act as cement, and come and tighten this area of vulnerability to keep it tight. If it's not tight, stuff can leak out into the blood and cause disease. And these short chain fatty acids are only produced by the biological activity of these microorganisms. You cannot get them from eating food or what have you. Now, the second thing I want to highlight is that our microbiome, our gut, helps to regulate and train the immune system. I found this very fascinating when I learned about this 3 years ago, because this is something which unfortunately I wasn't taught in medical school. Did you know that 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut? And the other 30% of the body's immune system resides in the bone marrow, the lymph nodes, the lymphatic. And the microbiome is responsible for training the immune system on how to react. So when the microbiome is healthy, it gives the immune system a healthy training on how to recognize what is a threat, what is not a threat, and what level of force to use for what is not a threat. Now, and this is how it looks like. When the microbiome is healthy, it may see a bacteria and train the immune system. You see that bacteria right there, he's a bad guy. He's going to cause us trouble if we don't take him out. But the good news is he's not a difficult bacteria to kill. You could just take a little stone, and aim it at him and you will take him out. And then it may see another bacteria. I say, this other bacteria, he's a bad guy. If we use a little stone, we'll not be able to take him out. For this bacteria, we need a little grenade to deploy in his backyard. So it recognizes the threat and prescribes the appropriate level of response for the threat. Also, when the microbiome is healthy, it may tell the immune system, hey, do you see that guy right there? And the immune system says, what guy? I can't see the guy you're talking about. And the immune system and the microbiome says, look, well, that guy. And the immune system is still struggling to see the guy. And it says, listen, the reason you cannot see that guy that I'm pointing to you, look well again. That guy, he's in camouflage. He's like a chameleon then. He's in camo. And the immune system says, oh, now I see him, now that you say. And the microbiome says, listen, that guy who is in camouflage, he may look like the enemy and may be acting like the enemy, but he is not the enemy. He is part of the body cells. He's doing some undercover work. Do not attack him because he is one of us. That's what a healthy microbiome does to the immune system in terms of training. When the microbiome is not healthy, it trains the immune system to have an unhealthy response. It trains the immune system to be hot-tempered, ready to shoot first and ask questions later. Have you ever met somebody who is so hot-tempered? You tell them good morning in a bad tone and they're ready to go off. That's what the microbiome does to the immune system when the microbiome is unhealthy. Makes the immune system hot-tempered, ready to pick a fight. It may and also have an exaggerated response to things that it should not. And it may look like this. It sees that bacteria that could have easily been killed with a stone, and the microbiome tells the immune system, you see that bacteria right there is a bad guy. We could take him out with a stone, but you know what? Why use a stone? We've already determined that he's a bad guy. He needs to die. Why not go big? Why not make a big splash? Let's drop a grenade in his backyard and take him out. So, for a bacteria that could have been killed with a simple stone, you're now dropping a grenade in his backyard. That grenade, when that grenade goes off, it causes collateral damage to other neighboring cells and flares up the immune system to go into chronic inflammation. So you're having more side effects because of that hot tempered action. The other thing is that he may see the guy who is in camouflage, and he just says, "Oh, that guy's in camouflage guy. He looks like the enemy, smells like the enemy, doesn't do any reasoning. I'm gonna take him out." He says, I don't got time, to figure out whether this guy who is in camouflage, whether he's part of the also or he's the enemy. He just looks like the enemy. I'll take him out. And it ends up that the immune system now has trained the microbiome has now trained the immune system. When you see that guy in camouflage, ask no questions. Just take him out. Assume he's the enemy. Whereas that guy is part of the body's cells, and the immune system now goes on a rampage. Anything that it sees that looks or smells or acts like the enemy, it takes out. And that's how you develop autoimmune diseases, when the immune system begins to attack things in the body that look like the enemy. That happens when your microbiome is not healthy. Now that you understand what the microbiome is and some of its basic functions, what then is dysbiosis, another name, microbiome dysfunction? You see, the bacteria in the gut, this 30 to 100 trillion bacteria in the gut, they live in a 50-50% proportion. 50% of them are what you call bad bacteria, and the other 50% of them are what you call good bacteria. They balance each other out, checks and balance each other out. Now, we say you have dysbiosis or microbiome dysfunction when there is an imbalance in the population. The bad bacteria increase to, let's say, 70%, and the good bacteria decrease to, let's say, 30%. That imbalance in that microbial population is what we call dysbiosis. Why does this happen? This happens because of the shortage of food. When there is shortage of food, it sets into motion survival of the fetus. Now, the food for the microbiome is fiber. Fiber is one of those special nutrients that we do not digest as humans, because it is food for these organisms. Unfortunately, our foods have become so processed. If I gave you a time machine to go back 200-300 years in the past and look at what our ancestors were eating that in those days as foods, and compared to what we're eating right now, our foods are so foreign to theirs. The fiber has been taken out of our food so much, and so our microbiome is deprived of fiber. So when there is a shortage of food because our shortage of fiber, because our foods are so processed, devoid of fiber, the bad bacteria, the stronger bacteria. So what they do is that, they hoard the little food. In that survival of the fetus mentality, they hoard the little food that is there. And then they say to themselves, you know what? We're the stronger guys. There's not enough food to go around for us, the good guys and the bad guys. So why don't we increase our army to keep a monopoly on the small food that is there? And so they increase to 70% or 80 or what have you at the expense of the good guys. And when you have that imbalance, we say you have dysbiosis. And when you have dysbiosis, it now it compromises the function of the microbiome, what the microbiome can do, and then results now in disease processes. On this slide, it's not exhaustive of all the modern day diseases that come as a result of dysbiosis. Again, this is just a depiction, but you will see here that there are many autoimmune diseases. Hashimoto, it comes from the gut. training the immune system to attack itself. Lupus is an autoimmune disease. MS, multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune disease. Celiac, an autoimmune disease. And other things here, there is asthma, which is an inflammatory disease. A leaky gut causes toxins to leak in, causes chronic inflammation. I want to also highlight something which, when I learned about this 3 years ago, I found to be very interesting. I never knew in medical school that anxiety and depression are strongly linked to the gut. Never knew. You see, the hormone that helps to maintain our mood called serotonin, that hormone, which is called the happy hormone, the happy or mood hormone, did you know that 90% of that hormone is produced in the gut? 90%. That blew my mind when I found out 3 years ago. I always thought that all of it was produced in the brain, the central nervous system. Only 10% of that hormone is produced in the central nervous system. 90% is produced in the gut. So imagine when the gut is unhealthy, the factory that makes serotonin will not be able to work to produce serotonin. 90% of serotonin is gone. You have anxiety and depression. Now, this slide here is a slide I call the metabolic sequence of inflammation. It really shows that insulin resistance and dysbiosis result in energy shortage, which result in injury to the cell, which then result in chronic inflammation. That chronic inflammation is then results in the symptoms and the disease processes that we have it. So right here, the fire is right here, and it goes to result in all of this chronic inflammation. Most of these disease processes underlying them are chronic inflammation. Now, I want to say this: in as much as there is science that shows that our chronic modern day diseases are coming from these two entities, there is now overwhelming science that says that if we were to reverse the root causes of these modern day diseases, reverse the insulin resistance, reverse the dysbiosis, you could reverse the disease condition. And I put it this way: these conditions cause stolen energy. Dysbiosis and insulin resistance cause stolen energy. And the body needs energy to function. If you could restore that stolen energy, the body goes back into functioning well. And the way I like to put it is this: imagine you driving in a car and your car runs out of petrol. When your car runs out of petrol, that car is gonna stop. That's the disease. It has stopped. It stops not because there's an intrinsic failure of the engine. No, it stops because its energy source is gone. If you walk to the nearest gas station and you bought petrol in a gallon and went back to your car on the side of the road and put petrol back into that tank, that car is automatically going to start. Why? Because its problem was energy. So it is with these diseases. Science now shows that because these diseases are due to energy shortage, a restoration of that energy shortage by addressing the root cause causes a reversal of that disease. So just like that car starts again when you put petrol in it, you could restore or reverse the disease condition. It is that simple but that profound. And I want to introduce to you guys a solution that helps to do just that. A solution called the Feel Great System. The Feel Great System is a nutraceutical combination made up of two products. What is a nutraceutical? A nutraceutical is a product made 100% from plants. There are no pharmaceuticals in it, but it has huge therapeutic benefits. So, there's a company that asked a smart question, a health and wellness company that asked a smart question. If there is science that says that reversal of insulin resistance and reversal of dysbiosis can result in reversal of disease conditions, you know, can we create, a phytonutrient product that helps to do just those two things. And that's how this solution was born. You see, and this solution called the Feel Great system, it's a science-backed approach. It uses the science of intermittent fasting and supplementation of fiber to reverse insulin resistance and dysbiosis. That's the cornerstone of this. Using the science of intermittent fasting and fiber, those two things together come and cause a reversal of this. You see, our ancestors 300 years ago, they did not eat and live the way we did. If we eat 3 meals a day, right now, our ancestors, some estimates say that our ancestors ate about 3 to 5 times a week. Okay. To say that we eat 3 meals a day may be an oversimplification because we eat 3 meals and in between our meals, we're always eating, 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 eating. So we're giving ourselves too much calories. And remember, when you give yourself more calories than the body needs, those excess calories are converted into fat and stored into this cell and becomes insulin resistant right here. So we're going to use the science of intermittent fasting to give our body a break from calories, and you will see how that helps to reverse that. Now, let's take these two entities to get one after the other and speak into how they reverse insulin resistance and dysbiosis. The first product here called Unamate. Unamate is made from a plant that is native to South America called the yerba mate plant. The thing about this plant is that it is rich in a very important phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. And chlorogenic acid has two important properties, okay? The first important property of chlorogenic acid is that it helps the body to be able to produce GLP-1s. GLP-1s are hormones that our body produces. People inject. If you have heard of the drug Ozempic, Mounjaro, what have you, those are synthetic GLP-1s that the pharmaceutical industry has gone into our bodies, taking the hormone and made a synthetic form to sell to people. Our bodies actually produce those naturally that cause us not to crave food, that cause good metabolic balance. So when your GLP-1 levels are high, it shuts down the hunger center in your brain, and can let you not crave and take a break from food. Why that is important is because GLP-1s can help you to be able to fast. Remember, we're going to use the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to reverse these two things. So let me explain to you how a GLP-1 helping you to be able to fast can help you reverse insulin resistance. You see, I'll clear this. Our body has two sources of fuel. Our first source of fuel is glucose, and our second source of fuel is fat. Now, the body uses fat 80% of the time and glucose 80% of the time and fat 20% of the time. So glucose is the body's primary fuel source. Now, um, what happens when you consume the Unamate product? It's going to cause the body to produce GLP-1s. We want you to fast to be able to help you reverse insulin resistance. There's some people who are unable to fast, without willpower. What happens is the GLP-1 component of the Unamate goes and shuts down the hunger center of your brain to help you to fast. We prescribe that people taking this nutraceutical should not eat breakfast and eat just 2 meals a day, lunch and dinner. So you just need to wake up in the morning and fast during that 4 hour period until it's lunch. When you consume the Unamate, which has GLP-1, it shuts down the hunger center of your brain and lets you fast. Why is fasting important? Why are we trying to use the science of intermittent fasting? This is the reason why. When you're fasting, your body's glucose levels go low. Glucose is like the body's check-ins account, okay? And fat is like the body's savings account. Now, when you start fasting, your body's glucose levels go low. When your body's glucose levels go low, your body needs and continues to need energy. Metabolic processes need to continue to go on. So when glucose is no longer able to provide that energy, your body has to switch to an alternate source of energy. So when I talk about your checkings account and your savings account, in periods of plenty, we use our checkings account. In periods of hardship, we're going to switch to our savings account. Even in periods of hardship, you still have to pay your landlord, you still have to pay your mortgage and what have you. So when you are fasting, what happens is your body's glucose levels go low, your checkings accounts go low, your body now has to switch to depending on a savings account, fat for fuel. And remember, the first way in which you developed insulin resistance was you had that cell that was filled with fat, that when insulin now came knocking at the door, the cell could not take it up. So when you start fasting now, because of the GLP-1 component, the body switching to its savings account remembers, I had that cell that was fat laden that could not take up glucose. The body now goes and uses that fat in that cell, burns it out, and converts that cell now to like this. When that cell now looks like this, you go back to this slide right here. The cell now looks like this. All of the glucose that could not enter the cell can now enter the cell and result in energy production. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the chlorogenic acid has an intrinsic property of causing lipolysis, just a fancy medical term to say fat burning. So when you consume the Unimate, uh, uh, its intrinsic property of causing lipolysis is going to result in this cell turning to this cell. So you're having two ways in which this cell is coming to this cell. First, the fasting, which is helped by the GLP-1 causing this to go to that, and second, intrinsically, the fat burning property of Unimate causes this cell to go to this cell. So you're having two processes to help you free this cell to look like that. And when it now looks like that, you have glucose entering the cell. You reverse the first step of insulin resistance. You reverse that. Too much fat. Now, what happens is that it causes the second step of insulin resistance to be reversed also. When the amount of glucose, when glucose now begins to enter the cell, the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, a message is sent to the pancreas. Hey, you need to now produce low insulin. Remember, there is a one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin production. So when that insulin concentration, when the glucose concentration now goes down, insulin levels go low. When insulin levels go low, it's like that boss that was crazy that his employees need not respect. He becomes humble. He comes to work one day and he calls a meeting of all of his employees and says, hey, listen, I have been a really bad boss for the last 2 months. I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? The employees are taken aback by that humility. Oh, the boss is apologizing for the things he did wrong. The employees forgive their boss. And what happens after forgiving their boss? They regain respect back for the boss. When the boss says, hey, get me this project, they're ready to jump and do it for him. You translate that to the cell. When insulin now starts running low, the cell regains its respect for insulin. When insulin now tells the cell, open your doors this wide so I can let glucose in, the cell is happy to open its doors this wide. And so you reverse that second part. Now, that is how the Unimate helps in reversing insulin resistance through these true properties. GLP-1 causing you to fast, intrinsic property of fat burning. This second product here called Balance is simply fiber. Fiber is so important for our metabolic health. Very, very important. Fiber helps to reverse insulin resistance exactly the same way like this. It causes this lipolysis, causes this cell to become like this, and as a result, causes resolution of this, resolution of that. The other thing that fiber does is that fiber helps to decrease your glycemic index, decreases your glucose spike. What do I mean by that? Fiber decreases the amount of calories that you're going to consume from a food, and so causes your glucose secretion release into your blood to be lower. And I put it like this: if let's say you and I, ate a bowl of pap, which is very high in calories, and you consumed your bowl of pap, which is a high carbohydrate meal. That's you, that's me. You consume your bowl of pap without fiber, your blood sugar is going to do this, and that spike in your blood sugar may be 180. For me, I know a thing or two about fiber. I know that when I consume fiber, it's going to buffer the rise in my blood sugar. So I consume this product. This product is made out of fiber from 7 different plants. So I consume the balanced product, and then I go eat the exact same quantity of pap. What's going to happen is my blood sugar is going to do this. Okay. And for me, my blood sugar there may be 80. You and I have eaten the exact same bowl of pap. Your blood sugar rose to 180, mine only to 80. The significance of that is that your pancreas is going to produce a commensurate higher amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 180. So for you, your pancreas may produce 20 units of insulin. For me, my pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 180. For me, my pancreas may put with that blood sugar of 80. For me, my pancreas will produce 5 units. I want you to think about 20 units of insulin like the crazy CEO, the crazy boss who the employees did not respect. Okay. And I want you to think about 5 units of insulin as the humble boss who the employees have more respect for. That's what fiber does to, does to your insulin sensitivity. Now, one other thing is that because insulin is an anabolic hormone, the more insulin you produce, the more calories you're going to store. So for you, because you produce 20 units of insulin from that bowl of pap, you may gain 950 calories. For me, because I did only 5 units of insulin from that bowl of pap, I may gain only 300 calories. Isn't that wild? You and I ate exactly the same quantity of pap. The only difference was fiber. You have gained 950 calories, I've gained 300. The ramifications of that is excess calories get converted into fat, and that fat now gets stored in the cell, causing insulin resistance. So for you here, this is what's likely going to happen to you. Your excess calories will be converted into fat and come and lump it in this cell and cause you to be insulin resistant. The last thing is that fiber is food. So that's how fiber helps to reverse insulin resistance. And the last thing, as you guys picked up from the initial earlier part of the talk, that the food for the microbiome is fiber. So fiber being food for the microbiome helps to reverse dysbiosis. When you consume a high amount of fiber, you're consuming fiber, there is now enough food for the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, no need for infighting. And as a result, you have a healthy gut. So this is how these two components, Unimate and Balance, which are nutraceutical products made 100% from plant, uses the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to reverse insulin resistance and gut dysbiosis and give you the opportunity to reclaim your health again. Thank you guys for listening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass it on to Catherine to moderate and take any questions before we close.
Thank you so very much, Prof. I mean, Doc, that was such a wonderful presentation as usual. Now I'm elevating you because you deserve to be Prof. You're such a great educator. So can we all give a round of applause to Dr. Dieter on that amazing presentation? Just you can use the reaction button. And yeah, I'll take questions. Please raise your hand or just drop your question in the chat. So yeah, I mean, Doc, every time I listen to this presentation, I just learn something else that I might have missed before. And that is, I think, the reason why we do these every week. So colleagues, please be aware, the same link that we used to get into this session tonight is the same link that we will use again next week, Thursday, and the week after, and so it goes. Any questions from anyone? Dr. Nyisi, I see you. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to have you tonight. Thanks. Questions, anyone? I know it was an excellent presentation, as always, but it would be nice to just engage and just hear what people's views are. Any particular points of surprise? I think I saw it.
What I can do, which I failed to do, I can show some pictures of some before and after photos of people whose lives have changed.
Maybe you can do that. Absolutely.
Okay,
I'm one
wonderful.
person
Let's do
whose
that.
life is already changing with the feel good system. While
Yes,
doctors,
every time I see you, Catherine, you just look, you're glowing to me,
even my
so
sister says that, my big
yeah,
sister.
so
She's always saying, wow.
yeah,
So that's
every time I see you, you are glowing.
yeah. But perhaps as you're pulling those pics up, I just want to share that, for me, what is really amazing is to hear or to have learned over the past 3 months now that these products have been around, but they have never been available on our continent. So it is important to emphasize that these products are now finally available in South Africa. And those of you who might be interested in getting to hear more about the business side of these products and how they are being distributed into our local markets, do get in touch with the person who invited you to this call this evening, and we'll talk about that. But ideally, we would really like to see as many people as possible getting onto this way of living so we can put an end to this I think a crisis really of non-communicable diseases that is ravaging our communities in this continent. I think you guys will all agree with me that certainly in South Africa and the neighboring countries, it has become almost a daily issue that we hear announcements of young people dying of non-communicable diseases. And we are thinking it's probably high time we shared the solutions to some of these problems. Back to you, Doc. I saw your
All
hand,
right,
so I'll acknowledge you just now. Back to you,
all
Doc.
right. All right. This is a picture of me, first of all, in 2019. I was 220 pounds. I learned about intermittent fasting, just intermittent fasting. And I started doing intermittent fasting and I was able to lose 50 pounds. But I remained at this weight, after just doing intermittent fasting, until I learned about these products in March of last year. And after 2 months of being on the product, this was my transformation in 2 months. So I lost another 14 pounds, and for the first time, I was at my ideal body weight. The other picture I want to show you is a picture of my twin sister in Cameroon. My twin sister name is Monica. She struggled with her weight. When this helped me, I bought a box and I sent to her. And one thing I want you guys to understand is that when you have insulin resistance, this is what insulin resistance does. When your insulin is high, it acts as a jailer. It goes and jails fat, locks fat up in the jail cell. You cannot lose weight. Once you reverse insulin resistance and your insulin becomes humble, your insulin becomes low, it now goes and lets fat out of the jail cell. And fat is now, let's see, Fat is now let out of the jail cell like that. And that's why a lot of people, who struggle with weight by addressing their insulin resistance with this, see a weight loss issue. This is somebody who had diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, reversed all of that, high cholesterol, reversed all of that. When you have insulin resistance and dysbiosis, it causes you to be inflamed. This is somebody's before and after. The same lady. Look how younger she looks, after reversing insulin resistance and dysbiosis. They just two different people. I mean, I cannot wrap my head around that. Just two different people. This is John. John was a diabetic for about 25 years, and John reversed his diabetes. John also had a chronic ulcer on his foot that could not heal, that he had been struggling with, and which he was able to reverse. This is another picture of a lady who had lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, and was able to reverse all of that, and 40 pounds weight loss gone. This is a guy who was a former NFL player. He suffered with psoriasis. Psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. It covered his whole back. After restoring his gut and insulin, the psoriasis is gone. In the process, he was also able to lose 50 pounds. The numerous stories of people with their transformation. This lady had PCOS after 20 years, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is one of the most common causes of infertility now in the world and even in Africa. She was able to reverse that. When you restore your insulin and reverse your gut, you can have amazing results. This is another person's transformation just before and after, what inflammation does to you. I want to show you. This is my friend Festus. Festus is on here actually. Festus had sleep apnea. Festus had sleep apnea for 12 years and was told that he will never get rid of it because it was not related to obesity. Sleep apnea is a result of metabolic dysfunction. Festus reversed his sleep apnea and no longer has to wear a sleep apnea machine. This is my dear friend, Dr. Natasha. She's a pediatrician. We went to medical school together. She introduced me to this, and this is her own life transformation. She struggled with her weight, metabolic issues, anxiety, dysbiosis, all those things gone. So, numerous stories of numerous people. This is somebody who was diabetic, A1C down from 12.2 to 5.2. I want to see if I can show you guys a picture of a wound. You can use this in kids also. Kids who are obese are benefiting from that. This is another kid. Um, this is a nurse whose A1C went down from 14 to 5.9. I want to pull up a picture of a diabetic wound for you guys to see. Where is that, Kenny? If I can find that. This is another picture of somebody's before and after. It's amazing, she says, in just 6 months, I've reversed my diabetes. I no longer wear the shackles of blood pressure and diabetic medications. I was so excited to finally get my labs back today. See what her labs are. Triglycerides down to 108 from 318. A1C down from 7 to 6.1. Just lives that have changed forever. I want to see if I could find you this picture, last picture of a diabetic wound. Uh, okay, I can't find that right now. I will stop sharing my screen, and I will hand it over back to you, Dr. Catherine. But those are just some pictures of peoples whose lives have changed forever. using the product, just reversing the root cause of their issues. Diabetics no longer diabetics. People with high cholesterol getting off medications. People with blood pressure getting off medication. The people who had autoimmune diseases, lupus, Hashimoto's, no longer. And I just wanted to show some of those pictures. And Catherine, can you share your own experience so far with what this has done for you, and if there's anybody else who wants to share?
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Maybe before I do that, let me just read out a question here from Beatrice. Hello, Doc. What relationship does this product have with the body metabolism? I'm not sure I understand the question, but maybe you do, Doc. Beatrice, your question says, what relationship does the product have with the body metabolism?
Yeah. Is it can we unmute Beatrice so that, because it's a question that I don't understand, because all of what I explained has to do with metabolism. So um, either so maybe you need to shed a little bit more light on your question.
Yes.
Okay. While we're waiting for that, maybe.
Yeah, while we're waiting, so maybe I can just quickly share my own experience. So I've been on the protocol I'm just finishing my second month now. And prior to me getting onto the protocol, I think there were two major issues that I was struggling with. And the first one was that I was having extreme lower back pain, to the extent that it was very difficult for me to turn over in the middle of the night as I was sleeping. I literally would wake up, that kind of lower back pain that wakes you up, and you have to kind of think about turning yourself. And all of that is gone now. I mean, yeah, it's really amazing. And the second thing that I've noticed is that I was getting swollen ankles towards the end of the day, which is something that I think in this part of the world we have normalized this, what happens when you're getting older, especially for ladies. And yeah, all that swelling is now gone, because that's a good indication of cardiovascular, poor health, isn't it? So that is totally gone. And finally, I'm a person who likes to take walks. And for the many years that I've been walking, I've never hit VO2 max in the range higher than, lower end of good on the scale. And these days I literally just sit in the excellent range all the time. And again, VO2 max, for those of you who exercise, would know that it's a clear indication of how well your heart, your lungs, and your muscles work together during intense exercise. So the higher it is, the better it shows that your body is doing very, very well. So it's been really, really great. I think the sad thing for me, and I'm sure most of you guys here from the African continent, the sad thing for me about knowing about this product when I did, which was in September last year, was that I had literally just lost my only brother to many, many years of diabetes, which just got more and more, just progressed, because that's how health systems in this part of the world treat diabetes and high blood pressure. They just keep medicating patients. Hardly anyone talks about the fact that these illnesses are reversible, which I think is a big, big tragedy. And that is why I'm on this mission now, to evangelize about the fact that these illnesses can be reversed with a very simple protocol, which is really just two sets of teas. They're just teas, and they're very nice. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
think you had a question earlier. Please feel free to ask any questions, guys. We are about to close very shortly.
Yeah, we're gonna give another 5 more minutes or so if there are any questions. If you have any questions, you could either put them in the
Your hand,
chat
please.
or
Yeah.
okay, let's unmute her. asked to
Yeah, just
unmute.
unmute
All
them.
right,
Yeah,
we
thank you.
did.
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, thanks a lot. I know that hi, it's Futsi here, Dr. Tita,
Hey,
Dr. Kath.
hey, Futsi.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking on behalf of a friend that I know is on the call that I've invited. So how I'm also seeing this is because I haven't had any operation done on my body, because maybe there hasn't been anything that is severe that would have put me in that situation. But there could be matters of being tired and maybe weight and maybe trying to make sure that certain diseases that are not too serious get to be reversed. But now, if I'm trying to get somebody who has really been very ill onto the protocol, where maybe there's issues of this person had cancer, and that has involved a lot of operations having been done, this person having now lose a bit of weight. If she gets to be on this protocol, will
Will that
how would it
cause weight
help?
loss?
There's weight loss, not necessarily, but I'm just worried to say that I think for my friend, it has been quite adverse, where there's lots and lots of operations that have been done. And I think we're just trying to come around the medication that she's on. So because we won't obviously just downward stop taking medication, will the protocol help to maybe somehow improve the quality of life that the individual is having? Because if you've been told that you have cancer and you are doing this and that, how will this help for somebody
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, I will speak generally without knowing much details as to the extent of a cancer and what have you. Um, um, Absolutely, the protocol is going to help to give us some improvement in quality of life. Because one of the things is that a lot of the symptoms that people have from cancer treatments and what have you have to do with inflammation too. So if I take, for example, patients who get cancer treatment, depending on what cancer treatment they have, they get neuropathy, they get tingling and what have you. Neuropathy is hugely driven by deficiency in nitric oxide to in the vessels, so causing poor perfusion. So I'm just giving that as an example. I do have a cancer patient on it who has colon cancer, and she finds that recovery after her chemotherapy and what have you, because of the energy component of it, her recovery is better. So I do think that she stands to have a quality of life benefit from these things, because it will be addressing inflammation and reducing a lot of the pain that we have driven by inflammation. Even the pain from cancer, it will be bringing down that inflammatory level and improving the degree of improving the extent, improving the symptoms that she may experience. Instead of the symptoms being at this level, the symptoms may be at this level. So there is a quality of life aspect that she stands to gain by introducing this, just because it can bring down her inflammatory levels.
Thank you, Doc. I think related to that is another question from also my friend. He's in the call tonight. He had a question about a patient that's recovering from stroke, and that
Okay.
recovery seems to be taking quite, an extensive period of time.
Yeah. So
What
what
would
I
you say to that?
yeah,
And we know we are conscious to the fact that you are not going to be making a diagnosis.
yeah. What I will say is that there is also benefits. We have stories of people who it helps to improve their recovery. Depending on the extent of your stroke and all of that, there are certain things that you may never get back. But what we are finding with restoring metabolic balance, that it improves the chance of it pushes your recovery. So if, let's say, your recovery time frame, barring none of this, would have been 1 to 2 years to gain back this level of function, it could change that trajectory. Maybe instead of 1 to 2 years, it could bring down that recovery to maybe 9 months to gain back that function. So we are finding that in patients who have suffered from stroke, it pushes them more towards a faster recovery to gain back whatever function they could possibly gain back. Not saying that you're going to be 100% healed from whatever defects, but when you suffer the stroke, the therapies you get are to help you regain as much function as possible. And what we are finding is that the correction of these two things using this product helps to push you towards that recovery faster, or gives you the best opportunity to gain as much function back as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doc. So we have a hand from Pires, but while we are unmuting him in Finland, yay, there is another question here. Is the protocol to be taken in perpetuity, or is there a period limit? We always get this one, Doc.
Yes, I love that question. It's a very common question and a common sense question. So I'm not surprised when we get that question all the time. So the way I answer that question about, should it be taken in perpetuity is simply yes, if you can afford to. And I'm going to go further to say that this product is food, okay? It's food, and food is medicine. And remember, in our talk, I said our ancestors did not have these diseases because they ate and lived in such a way in that time that it kept their insulin working and their guts working. In the modern day that we live in, our foods are so strange to our microbiome. In the modern days that we live in, our foods are so high in calories. So what I tell people is that you have to eat food every day, right? Why not eat the right food that is medicine to you the right day? Consume this. Now, if you're unable to do so, because there are people, if you're unable to do so, then you need to commit to living like your ancestor lived 300-400 years ago. You do not eat anything that doesn't look like food that your ancestor will recognize. So I tell people what you can do is, if you're not able to continue on this for whatever reason, if, let's say, on the protocol and it helps to reverse your diabetes or helps to reverse your blood pressure or your weight or what have you, after you have achieved that goal, if you're not able to sustain and continue, then what you need to do is you need to have the utmost discipline to eat and live like our ancestors did 300 years ago in this modern age. And that's hard to do. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. But it's hard to do. Our foods that we have and our lifestyles are so different. The beauty I love about this is I could eat pretty much the way I eat in modern day society. The only thing I need to do is to consume this stuff every day while doing that. And it upsets that stolen biology effect. So that's how I'll answer that question. But it is possible to live a strict lifestyle like our ancestors did, and, correct all of these things. I was saying our ancestors did not eat 3 meals a day. Some estimates say they ate 3 to 5 meals a day. So you have to go to being very strict like that and not eating anything that is unnatural, eating food that is 100% animal based, 100% plant based for the rest of your life. So it's a hard thing to do. So that's why I simply subscribe to, you should just use it every day if you could. I've been on it now since March of this year, and I have resolved that I'll be on it for the rest of my life, because Food is medicine. My wife is on it. All my kids are on it. I want them to be as healthy as possible, living in preventive mode.
Great. Peters, you have the mic.
Hey, good evening. This is Peter from Finland.
Peters, thank you. How are you?
Good. I have heard about the product, but my question is, what are the side effects? Because you just mentioned now that I have to live on it for the rest of my life.
I like that question.
Then
I
the
like
next
that.
one is, I tried the intermediary, as you said, the intermediary fasting for like almost 2 years. It really didn't work. It worked for let's say for like, how can I say, for 6 months. I shed some weight, but after then, nothing was going, no matter what I do.
Okay, let me speak to those two things. So, like you, I'll speak to the latter first. Like you, I used to do intermittent fasting for 6 years and I lost 50 pounds and I could not lose any more weight. So, there's a place where you plateau that you have some resistant fat that intermittent fasting alone may not be able to do it. And so, for me, when I introduced this product, I was still intermittently fasting. When I introduced this product, it was able to take the fight to the remaining resistance and take it down. So that's why you have seen that plateau. There is some insulin resistance that cannot be overcome there, where the double effect of the GLP-1 inducing effect as well as the lipolysis effect of the chlorogenic acid, two people taking the fight to one enemy better than just one person taking the fight to one enemy will cause you to break that plateau. I'll speak to that. Now, the other thing in terms of side effects, there are two side effects, and those side effects are transient. The first side effect has to do with fiber. And the side effect of fiber is that once you start taking the product, you'll be constipated depending on your degree of dysbiosis. And the constipation is transient, about 1 to 2 weeks. When I started taking it, I suffered from constipation for about 12 days. Okay. I will strain and only stool every 3 days during that 12-day period. But what happens is your colon has to acclimatize to that load of fiber. Your colon has not been given that load of fiber for decades and decades. You now start exposing it to that load of fiber. It has to acclimatize. And during that acclimatization process, you have constipation. But once your colon acclimatizes, you will never have that symptom again. For me, it was 12 days. From the 13th day on, it was gone. And that's transient. The other side effect, which is transient and which is being mitigated right now too, is the caffeine side effect. The Yucca mate, the plants from which the Yucca mate is made is naturally caffeinated. So people who have a caffeine sensitivity will demonstrate whatever caffeine sensitivity to that. A lot of times people are able to, by decreasing the dose of the mixture, you mix it in water. This is what I'm drinking. The Yucca mate comes in a sachet like this. So for people who are caffeine sensitive, we tell them you take half of this sachet and mix it in this full bottle of water. That usually does it. But the other thing is that the company that produces the product has also made a decaffeinated version for people who are caffeine sensitive. So those are the two major, the two side effects, but they are transient, and they're easily addressed by those two things.
And it's not everyone who gets side effects. I have not had any side effects at all. So it's important to.
Yeah, that's important to say that. Yeah.
And moreover, I have a problem with I have a problem with going to having stool problem.
Yeah, stool problem. What I would say is stool problem is the result of dysbiosis. People who have constipation have an unhealthy gut. So this is going to resolve that, but you are probably going to have to endure a 1 to 2 week period of worsening constipation before it gets better. All right.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Doc. I
Thank you.
think we're gonna, yeah, thanks, Peter. See you next time from Finland. That's wonderful. Bring others. I think we're gonna bring it to closing. Ernest, your question, yeah, how do we access the products? So yes,
Okay.
like you have been answered, it's best to talk to the person who invited you into the meeting because they will share with you the link to the company website and how you can then place your order. Depending on where you are on the continent, it's important to perhaps share that currently the company is represented or is present in 4 countries only, and those are South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, and Morocco. So anyone else who is not in any of those countries would have to work with a friend or a partner who is in one of those locales to get a product for you, or the guys in North America can ship it to you into your own home country. So there's a whole lot of ways we can do this, and that is what the community is about. It's about sharing strategies. It's about supporting each other in getting as many people as possible onto this amazing protocol as quickly as we can, just so that we can stem this, the rampant crisis of non-communicable diseases on the continent. Doc, I want to say thank you once again.
Thank you.
Another amazing one. We are going to bring it to close. Can we just have comments and text messages to individuals? Because, it is late now, and we need to release you to do your work, Doc. And we will see you next week, same time, same place. Please share with everybody, as many people as you can, to join us in these calls. These are very important calls. Doc, closing remarks to you. Thank you.
Thank you guys for honoring this invitation to be here. Catherine, thank you for hosting us. We will be doing this again on Thursday at the same time. We want as many people as possible to be privy to the information that the health issues they suffer from, there is hope they could reclaim their health again. And so we're shouting this from the rooftop, and you could be our agents to invite other people to listen to this message of hope for people. So thank you for joining us. And if you listen today and you're interested in getting the product and what have you, get with whoever invited you. They will give you guidance as to how to get it. And look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Thank you and good night wherever you are.
Thank you.
And I will make available the recording for this. I'll share this with you, Catherine. And for those of you who attended who need the recording, get with whoever invited you. Thank you and good night and good day in the US.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.